And we're off. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to HOMAGO.com. My name is Evan Jones. I'm the community manager, and today we are speaking with Kinsey and Nathan from Seattle Retro Gaming Expo. Welcome. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm
Thanks
hanging
for
in
having
there. Oh, thanks for coming. Um, anyway, today we're going to be talking about the Seattle Retro Gaming Expo, which is taking place on June 28th and 29th of this month, yes?
Yep, it's
Which
coming
is
up.
June. Yeah. So soon, so soon, so far, so good. All of your information, all of your information is listed on your website, which is at seattleretro.org,
hmm
and you're on Twitter at Seattle Retro, which I believe is all one word. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it is.
All right. So, could you give us both a brief introduction, and we can just kind of round robin it. And if anybody has any questions or concerns, we're going to do a QA after we work through some of my pre-selected interview questions, which in no way have been vetted by an army of Jawas. And then we could just have a kind of an open session there and call it a night. So, Kinsey, please.
All right.
You.
Well, Seattle Retro is, obviously local to Seattle. We're kind of a community organization. We do events throughout the year. We also have our big giant expo every year in the summer. So this year, as Evan said, it's going to be June 28th and 29th at the Washington State Convention Center, and it's just full of where you can buy retro games, play retro games, talk about retro games. We have panels, we have all kinds of stuff. So it's pretty awesome, and Nate can tell you a little bit more about it as well.
Okay, yeah. So the Seattle Retro Gaming Expo started out as a community effort between a few of us who wanted to have a show like that. Prior to our show, there was a smaller group called the Northwest Classic Games Enthusiasts that was really kind of like garages and church basements. And we thought that at this time in Seattle, there should be a lot more people out there that like old games. So we decided to put together the Seattle Retro Gaming Expo. Um, and our main goal right now is building community and connecting people who don't normally go out to these kind of shows, or maybe they like old games like we do, but they're not necessarily interested in being part of kind of the newer gaming culture, which is somewhat different. So the Seattle Retro Gaming Expo caters to that.
Do you find yourself? Do you think you have a breakdown of who your attendees are in terms of like, do you see collectors? Do you see people who are just like they're into gaming it up to a certain point, and then like real life snuck in?
Yeah, we definitely have one big group, which is the hardcore collectors. These are the guys who wouldn't necessarily go to PAX to find games, although you will find certain stores like Pink Gorilla or some of the larger local stores, but they will find the really rare games, the weird NES games or obscure Genesis games or systems that most people haven't even heard of at our show. So for those people, we offer a pre-register benefit of getting in an hour early so they can get in and check out all the vendors and buy the games that they want to buy first. And so you'll see those people hanging out all day with all the purchases that they did early in the morning, trying out their games in the free play room or just swapping titles or stories or whatever. One surprising demographic that I didn't expect to get was the young parents. You get a lot of dads and moms that want to share the games that they grew up with their kids, and you get a lot of 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds playing Super Mario Brothers or Duck Hunt for the first time at our show.
That's really interesting. Do you have a? I mean, I saw a listing of all the consoles you have available. Do you think there's a most popular console, or is it just? I imagine it's got to be person per person a really interesting collection of stories and tales that you have.
So everybody has a favorite. A lot of people's favorite is the NES, but even now I find that like I'm more of an NES guy. That's kind of what I grew up with. But as the show goes on, the demographic sort of stays the same, so things are starting to sway into the Super Nintendo side of things. There's a lot of huge Super Nintendo and N64 fans that come to the show now.
I've noticed at a lot of our smaller events when I bring multiple systems, the 64 is what always has the line, and that kind of surprises me every single time. But it's a nice to have a nice balance of people. So
Yeah, that poor system got no love when I was in college and high school. Nobody wanted it except for like Mario Kart or GoldenEye. But now there's people who come up and they love games that like I've never played before on the Nintendo 64. And they're like, "This is the game I grew up with." but I never heard of it.
It's got a tiny library, but it does have some killer games on it. So
I'm gonna jump onto the question because if I don't, I'm gonna forget it, and then I'm gonna say later, "Hey, I have a question." Oh wait, I forgot it, and it'll make everything all awkward. So I'm gonna say.
And you didn't put it in the chat.
No, exactly.
Sinner.
No, we're just gonna go right in here. So that's interesting. You brought up the N64. I mean, obviously, as a lot of us grow older, like I grew up with kind of NES at first, and then Super Nintendo was kind of my thing. And then I know a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, Super Nintendo, that's so like younger." Not Atari, like, Cardinal Sin or whatever. So, I mean, like, are you ever going to find yourself in a position where people are going to be like, wow, PS2 so retro, or like PlayStation 3 so retro? Like, are you like accommodating for those situations, or you feel like there's going to be a retro community that will organically grow around those kind of systems?
I mean, there are already 360 collectors, which is kind of interesting because it's not. I mean, they still make games for it.
Yeah, that's
But
just
that's
weird.
all.
Yeah.
It's already a thing.
Okay.
Like I found myself, I collect 360 controller variations. What? I don't know what happened, but.
Yeah, we get the question
But I
all the
think
time.
it's going to go on for a while.
We get the question all the time of what do you consider retro, because every year we get new young people that are kind of rediscovering the games that they grew up with, and those are kids who grew up, the Xbox was their first system or the PlayStation 2 was their first system, and so I came up with this definition of retro, which is anything that is not currently available in stores. So if Sony stops selling a system in stores, then that's, as far as I'm concerned, part of the retro collection, and I think that now includes the PS2 and the PSP.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What
Starting today.
As of today. We had a very brief moment of silence for a. I think they just finally noticed that they still had the department open at Sony.
Yeah.
Somebody shut the door and locked it.
I mean,
I still want a PS4, guys, if you're listening. Or a
I mean,
3.
that's interesting with the PSP because, like, I think for a lot of people that was kind of, at least before Android came out, that was like where homebrewing and emulation was like really kind of started getting mainstream popular. So, RIP PlayStation Portable had the first one. I thought it was gonna be awesome. Destroyed my pockets. So.
Yeah, I remember the original Xbox. It had a lot of hacking for it, but not so much with the homebrews. I think the Dreamcast was the last one to really. There are still games that are being released for the DC that are homebrews.
Yeah.
I was hoping that the Xbox 360 could have something like that with their Xbox Live Arcade and the XNA architecture. It seems like something where they could just kind of let it go off to the side and let people do their own thing with it as they continue, promoting the Xbox One. But that it seems to not be the case.
Yeah. I mean, how many of you? I get the feeling that I'm really interested because last year at PAX I went to a panel on game collectors. And that kind of like opened my eyes to this whole new world of people like paying $500 for like a Sega Saturn game. That was like the first Sega Saturn game that had internet connection, and I'm like, what the F? So like, I assume that a lot of crossovers is like you guys get a lot of video game collectors, right? It's not just like players, but like people who just like top hats and mustaches and like monocles, like collecting the rarest artifact of games, or is it really like mostly just enthusiasts of NES or Super Nintendo or anything like that?
It's a pretty awesome like mix of both. Because there are people who come to these expos that are like, I need these like 5 games to finish my Super Nintendo game collection. Like, maybe I'll find it here. Like, we get that, a lot. And people who, there's a lot of like nostalgia people as well. They're like, well, I played this, but I haven't played it in forever, but I'm going to go because I love it. So.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think you'll find more people who want to buy the game to put it up on their shelf and just kind of pull it down and look longingly into Mario's eyes for a little while and then put it back on the shelf. But there's definitely people out there who have their collection like sitting on the floor next to their NES and they're playing it every day. I tend to be a weird combination of both. My games, my personal game library is part of the Seattle Retro Gaming Expo's free play library. So the reason that I buy games and add them to my collection is so that other people can play them at the free play. You'll see that same library at SoccerCon and at PAX as well. I donate it to both of those shows so that other people can go in and play games that they remember from their youth.
Nathan Kinsey, can I ask a Seattle-specific question here? I know I like how we jumped right in, and I've totally torched all my interview questions. I'm completely happy about that. I know it's going well. When after the first like 3 minutes, it's like, well, there was an hour down the
Well,
drain.
that's like my final question, so I'm just gonna like leave. It was great. So.
Ouch. I was going to ask. I noticed just from kind of walking around Seattle that I wandered into Pink Gorilla and I've wandered into other stores like literally minutes after getting off the bus up there. Is there a especially strong retro gaming scene there? Because it just kind of seems like I saw some stuff at SakuraCon, collectors-wise and game-wise, that I thought, wow, people really have to be like plugged in. And is that due to things like the presence of both Nintendo and Microsoft in the area?
Yeah,
I think so. I think you get. Go ahead, Kinsey.
Oh, I was just gonna say, there's Seattle. I've always felt has a really strong gaming presence. Like, I mean, for new games, we have like Bungie, Microsoft, Nintendo, 343, PopCap. Like, we have all these things that are just here, and then we also have a lot of retros. We have so many retro stores. We have so many like arcades and barcades. Like, I feel like the community is like super strong here. And
Yeah, I remember when I heard of my
awesome.
first barcade. It was the place in New York that I think was literally just called Barcade, and I was so jealous. I was like,
Yeah.
"Damn you, East Side! You always get the good stuff first." And since that was probably in 2007 or something. And since then, we've just totally taken over. There's barcades all over town. There's the Pinball Hall of Fame. Another castle just expanded. We've got arcades all over the Puget Sound. I think more than most places that I know of, and it's because there's such a strong community here. There's a lot of people who grew up with games whose parents worked at game companies and are now kind of raiding their closets and pulling that stuff out and putting it on display for people.
Yeah. Also, here's an interesting coefficient. Wrong use of the math term. Sorry. An interesting question I had that goes along the same lines. Do you know a lot of people who are in the refurbishing world? People who are basically, because those systems, man, I remember sitting there and messing with the Nintendo. It's like, watch that red LED just sit there and laugh at me.
That's the thing, Kinsey. I think you have the inside access.
I do know people in the refurbishing world, and I kind of like calling it that. That's funny. But like, well, my boyfriend actually works for another castle which is a local game store up here.
Wait. Kinsey, I'm sorry. Yeah. Your boyfriend is in another castle.
Oh, no. But, yeah, so he does all of the repairs, like on all generations. He does mainly PS3s and 360s just because that's what breaks, let's be honest. But he does all the old stuff as well, and he makes, like, repro carts and, like, all of that. So that's a pretty strong like business here as well. I know tons of people in this area who do repro carts. So
yeah, the repro thing is
cool.
really weird to me. I like the fact that you can get a reproduction cart of some things. For example, one of the games that we have in our free play library is the Nintendo World Championships, and this is one of those cartridges where there's only 125 of them in the world, and they're starting to sell for tens of thousands of dollars for one game. But thanks to the magic of reproduction, we have a copy of the Nintendo World Championship that we are comfortable with letting people play and use. We've used it for tournaments and all sorts of fun events in the past. So reproduction definitely has a place, but it's getting really scary. You can buy on eBay labels that are almost perfect reproductions of an original Legend of Zelda cartridge or Dino Peak, the Flintstones Adventures Dino Peak cartridge, which is a really rare game. And when you have a really good label like that and you swap out the motherboard for some reproduction board and you stick it in a cardboard box, there's very little that the average collector can do to identify that that is a fake.
I think if you're going to go into repros, I think you definitely need like some sort of like moral compass, I feel. I know a lot of people who only will repro things that never came out in America, so you can't buy it in that shape of cartridge. So, fan translation. It's kind of a slippery slope. Yeah, they're all fan subs basically. So.
Yeah, for example, Earthbound. for the Super Nintendo. That's actually a sequel to an NES version called NES game called Mother, and so that was fan translated, reproduced, and released as Earthbound Zero.
Was Mother a Gynax game, or am I just stuck on Gynax? No, that was Princess Maker.
Yeah, Mother was developed in house at Nintendo.
Okay.
Mother 3?
All the mothers.
Oh, mothers, yeah. I just know the fans are crazy about that Mother 3. So
they want it.
Yeah.
They want it bad.
Well, tell your children not to walk my way.
Well, it's funny because I heard actually like a Japanese copy of Mother 3 is actually like super easy to get. Apparently, it's just like the collector ones are like super people go crazy for them. So like every Mother 3 collector has like. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is just what I heard. It's like every Mother 3 collector has like the standard like Mother 3 initiation cartridge, which is like the Japanese Mother 3 cartridge, and then it's like a hunt for the most dangerous game of Mother collection. I don't know. Yeah, that game that community is just super wild.
Oh man, yeah. Star Road for years was the craziest community. They would write. I worked at Nintendo at the time that Star Road first appeared in their call center, and we would get inundated with letters, and they would have email campaigns, and people would call in and ask for it to be translated. And at the time, Nintendo just they just didn't listen to that stuff at all. So I think they either burned out or they went super hardcore crazy for Earthbound and Mother games.
Well, there's a lot of like
used to,
collector niches that are like that.
Yeah, Kenzie, go ahead.
But there's a lot of like collector niches that are like that. They're just like they're crazy, like Zelda collectors, intense. Mother collectors, intense. Like there's a couple of groups that I feel like are just slightly a little bit more intense than others, but or like sealed collecting is also crazy.
Yeah, we did an interview with Robin Mahara, who was a guest panelist at our show last year, and he talked to us a little bit about the grading system for sealed games. It's similar to what you would see with baseball cards or comic books. They would go through and grade the quality of a sealed game. So even within, it's not enough that it's sealed. It also has to have pristine corners, and the seal has to go across the cartridge in a certain way for it to be worth more or less than another cartridge.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
No, go on. I want to hear more about this. I'm sure your story is far. I'm not being cynical. I'm sure your story. I want to hear this follow up.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like a lot of people, you have to send your cartridge, that might be your box with a cartridge in it, like that might be worth thousands of dollars. You have to mail it away to get graded, and then a couple months they mail it back. So it's pretty intense. Like I don't know if I had I don't know, like a sealed Zelda Ocarina of Time I saw on eBay recently for like $5,000.
Wow.
Do I want to mail that away and hope it comes back? Like
I feel like I should start.
But if you have that rating system, whatever it is, you should start it. I'm excited.
Oh, sorry. It's the internet. It's like, hey, we're gonna take the audio and then just hold on to it for like 30 seconds before we just let it out there. Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like I should start like a seal grading service, whatever it takes to be certified, and just have everyone mail me things and just sit on it for like 3 minutes and be like, yes, and then just mail it back and be like, yeah, it's fine, it's good.
You should fly to them.
Yeah.
You should be the
That's
Galgo 13. You should be the Galgo 13 of game grading for sealed games.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah, just include it in the price.
Yeah, fly me to your house and I'll say your video game collection is excellent. Yeah.
You're like, can I just play everything? I'm already here.
Yeah. Actually, I have another question. So this actually kind of crosses with the speedrunning community a bit, because I know the speedrunning community is huge on retro. They speedrun retro games. It's great to revisit that in a way you've never played before. And during last year's, I think Awesome Games Done Quick this year, actually, they played a retro. I would consider a retro PC game. So I think it was like not Bubsy. It was some game where you're a rabbit and you had a gun, which could be like any computer game from like the 90s. Where do? No. It was like a weird platformer. Apparently, it was supposed to show off that the PC game had like just as good processing power as the Sega console. Again, just stuff I've heard.
Really?
But anyway, I'm just curious, like where do PC games fall in the retro gaming convention? I mean, I assume there are a lot of PC games that people really identify with from the childhood.
Well, I mean, like back in the beginning of gaming, like kind of computers is what you had. Like you had the Commodore 64, you had the Amiga, like you had all these things that were like a computer. So, I mean, I feel like you can't really discount PC gaming because of that. Like that's where we all started together. Like,
Yeah.
and
And
there's some
PC,
awesome PC games in the 80s and the 90s.
Well, I'm just
PC,
curious because
Go
like you
ahead.
would have things like floppy disks or something. Like you have mediums that may not even exist anymore. I mean, are they still traded, or people, there's like obviously really hardcore communities for them?
well, PC games
Yeah.
are sort of a harbinger for what we're going to experience with the 360 and PS3
Mm-hmm.
because they're just harder to emulate. They're harder to
Mm-hmm.
play. Whereas you can hook up your NES to your TV and plug in a cartridge and play it, you've got to find a full Amiga setup with discs and working discs and a working disk drive and get it all connected and hooked up. And then the discs may be corrupted because they're so sensitive.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of experience with using old computers, but I know that there are people who use them and love them.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, I was just curious how that community would even shape up just for that very fact you stated. It's just hard to get hold of them and recreate it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
really thankful for services like Good Old Games, who are, well, I guess, GOG now, who do with the work to bring those old 386 games, bring them into a Windows 7 environment so that they'll run in DOSBox or whatever. But I know, Kinsey, you've got your Amiga, and sometimes that's just the only way you can play a game.
Yep, I have an Amiga and I have a Commodore 64, and I have a giant stack of floppies. But when I say giant, it's like this big. But like the
Which
old
is
floppies are
giant,
pretty
technically.
floppy. Yeah. So I have a lot of floppy disk games, and I'm still looking for more. So it's still out there, definitely as a collector.
you guys need to make it over to Asia sometime and go game shopping over there because it's mind blowing. I drug home a Super Famicom and a whole bunch of games. And I think I was out maybe $40, $60 actually with the game system.
Nice.
Huh.
Yeah, it's
This is a good area to be for import games, though. I'm sure you've been to
true.
Pink Gorilla, and there are other stores that carry imports. I happened to come across a garage sale once about 7 years ago, and I walked out of there with a huge box of Super Famicom games, and I paid something like a quarter each. I was almost buying them by the pound, and you don't see that very often. So they're out there for sure. There is one thing that Portland is really good at that Seattle, I think, is not as good at, and that is the garage sales. Oh my goodness! If you want to find a good deal at
I've heard.
a garage sale, go to Portland, because we have friends that go down there or that live down there. The organizers of the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, and they find some amazing things and post about them every week on Facebook. I'm sure just to make me jealous.
You
It's
personally.
Yeah, just me.
it's one city of people who are they brought their MiFi to Voodoo Donuts. I like how delayed that Portland joke was. Voodoo Donuts is for anybody watching or viewing. Voodoo Donuts is a fantastic gourmet donut chain that started in Portland, and it's so much sugar that you may actually crash your car on the drive home. But no, this would be a really interesting place considering all that gaming history and all this company and the company that started there. From Northern California on up, there's just so many gaming and software companies for so long.
Yeah, it's really weird because you're right. Like a lot of the game companies are on the West Coast, but I don't know if you know much of the retro gaming community, but there's a huge pocket of retro game collectors over in the New England area, and yeah, and I guess it's just really easy to find games over there. I don't know, but there are some stores over there, some store owners that I'm friends with, and they just show amazing things coming through the door every day.
It's such a no. It's such an interesting thing. We've actually barely talked about the expos. I assume that it's a natural outgrowth of series of conversations such as this because I'm so fascinated by it. And by the way, way to be Brown Loyal with the shirt. I just saw that.
Hmm? Oh, the pink gorilla shirt.
The Pink Godzilla shirt.
Well, yeah, it's pink Godzilla. This is a favorite shirt of mine. It's starting to fall apart, but I like it because it was given to me by Nathan Payne and Greg Hess. They were the original owners of the store. I did their first website for them back in 2006, I think.
You could
And
always get a repro of it. Yes.
yeah, I'd have to. Yeah, at this point, they're pink gorilla now, so this is a wearable
Lawsuit.
rare item. Yeah, rare candy.
So, so as far as like the event goes, I was just wondering if you can give us kind of a breakdown of what your day to day is like, getting ready for it and building up to it, because that doesn't seem like something small. You know, you're at the convention center. Yes, it seems like a lot of time and effort's going to go into it.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's not small. It started out small, but the first year it was me and Gerald and I think maybe a half dozen other people that were kind of the core staff, and then we had volunteers that join in, and then the next year we brought in some amazing people, and Kinsey was one of the first of those people to join us.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I don't know, Kinsey. I mean, you came in, you saw it from the outside the first year. Would you say it's gotten bigger this year? I feel like I'm stuck in the middle.
I definitely think it's gotten bigger this year. I mean, even just our web presence is way bigger. I mean, we gained like 1,000 Twitter followers like in like a year and a half. So I don't know. I think we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And like the expo itself has grown. We went from the Red Lion Hotel to the Seattle Center, which is awesome, and then to the convention center. So yeah, I think we're moving right on up. It takes so much work. I took a lot of days off from work. A lot of
Yeah.
packing, setting everything up.
One thing that's a little bit unique about us is that we're a not-for-profit organization. So unlike a larger event like PAX or even SoccerCon, which is also a nonprofit, but they have a lot more money coming in. A lot of the stuff we do is kind of bootstrappy and ground up. So we handle a lot of the stuff ourselves if we can. If we can't, we try to barter. We do a lot of trading because we want to keep the costs down for the people who come to the show. You know, we don't want to charge an arm and a leg for our tickets, even though we're working in a union environment in a large corporate style convention center where we have to kind of eat those costs. So we try to keep it as grassroots as possible, and I think that builds a pretty good sense of community within the show, and I think that spills out into the audience.
Well, you routinely run events, as you mentioned, in other capacities in other places, and you've got a bunch of them listed at is seattleretro.org, yes?
Mhm.
So in that sense, you've got, in a way, I feel that your con doesn't end, per se. It's not just this one highlight. It's kind of a series of mountain chains of retro gaming, if you will.
That's a great way to look at it. we have monthly events, and we throw on we had an Emerald City Comic-Con after party 2 years in a row. We definitely keep the momentum going all year long, and I think that's the most important part, so people don't forget about you.
Yeah, we do. Kinsey and I both put on the Question Block, which is a monthly video game pub quiz. We do that every month as a part of the show, but also just to kind of get people together. Let's see, what else have we done? We did something at the EMP last year,
Which is?
the Experience Music Project. They had a art of game exhibit in cooperation with the Smithsonian, and they asked us to participate. So we brought some games and systems in, and they hooked them up to the TVs that they had, including their giant. What is that thing called? The Skychurch screen, the 80-foot
Yeah.
television screen. That was really something to see.
It's huge. Seeing the Atari on an 80-foot TV, or not even 80. No, 80 is too small. I don't know what the Sky Church is, but basically, it's like the TV
It's
when you're at
huge, yeah.
when you're at a baseball game and where all the scores are. It's like that. It's huge.
Yeah, so we've done plenty of events, and we're hoping to do more this year. We're also doing the podcast, which is our semi-regular retro game podcast. A lot of times we talk about events that are coming up, not just our stuff, but other things that stores are doing and other local events. And this last one we had was a beer podcast because we're all craft beer fans.
Well, living in Seattle, we kind of have to be. That's how that works.
Yeah, yeah. If you're not into coffee, you have to be into beer.
Yeah.
It's one way or another. Upvotes or downvotes, I guess.
Yep. Well, in my opinion, beer is the upvote.
Is your podcast available on SeattleRetro.org or?
It is on SeattleRetro.org from time to time. We're working on upgrading the front end so that the updates will come in more regularly. But you can also find it on iTunes and thequestionblock.com, and we also tweet about it whenever we post a new podcast.
Okay, and again, that's at Seattle Retro. Sounds like it spells. Want to go through kind of a few questions here about it. Speaking of, we'd mentioned earlier on online gaming broadcasts and I guess the burgeoning community of people who are kind of building a community of games in their free times and hobbies and looking at like Twitch and live streaming and whatnot. How do you feel the emphasis impacts you as an event? Because it keeps the game information going from what I tell it, but there's also so much happening that you kind of got to fight for space.
Go for it, Kinsey.
Well, I mean, all the like live streamings and like all of that is, I mean, I think it's awesome, and especially if people want to do capture cards with old games, I think that might just get people's like fire burning to start doing retro stuff again. Like, I definitely don't think Twitch or anything like that could ever like hurt. I don't see it as us fighting for space. I see it as we're all in this together, and we all love video games, so let's show it in our own way.
Yeah, Twitch is a great.
Maybe that's just me.
I think it offers opportunities. We could stream panels at our show. We could show people the things that are happening at the expo or the things that we're doing around the area. There's nothing wrong at all with Twitter and Facebook. I think that they're online versions of what we're doing, which is people who enjoy the same things, hanging out, talking about the things they love.
Yeah, I had to join Twitch for work yesterday.
Oh, now you're just ruining it. You had to join Twitch for work?
Yeah, it was terrible. I had to sit there and join Twitch for work, and I had to start messaging people. Hi, Tim. Who do I start following? And I got friends who are from years ago who are pro gamers.
That's right. You're a community manager. That's fine. I thought like you had to like, I don't know, set up ads or something, and just take all the fun out of it. But actually, that sounds like a lot of fun.
I'm really looking forward to spending more time kind of messing in about that community because we're teaching kids basic programming gameplay concepts through like Scratch this summer. But it's one of those things where I really enjoy the fact that I no longer have this really high barrier of entry as far as checking out games, looking at them, and seeing what they're like. And I personally don't actively follow games as much as I should. In my own mind, but also at the same time, I follow this other stuff, and I want to keep it fun and fresh, and also I'm more interested in what people who check out the website are doing. So things like Twitter are a godsend for me.
There's some really amazing things that you can do now, just as a one-man operation. I've been fiddling around with the software called Open Broadcasting Software, OBS, and it lets you handle multiple cameras. It lets you add text. You can hook up live feeds to it. So it was primarily designed for video games. So you can have leaderboards and scrolling news feeds on the bottom.
A feeder? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and you can have multiple people broadcasting similar to this, but you can stylize it a lot more, or you can have one screen that is the game feed or a video feed or whatever you want. It's really impressive. Timothy, I'm sure you've probably run across that as an esports person.
Yes, all of my friends stream, and I've streamed a couple times. I'm not sure if people realize it yet. OBS is a piece of revolutionary software. It's open source, and for a long time people had to stream with XSplit. XSplit was like the easy was like the easy software that you would click and go live, and everything's like what you see is what you get kind of thing, a nice user interface. And after a while, I mean, now they charge for it. I mean, you can still do the free version, but there are setbacks. But like a lot of people use OBS because they feel it's more lightweight and super easy to use. Like I've ran actually really crazy productions on OBS. I mean, obviously you need more professional software if you want to go big, but even with paying for XSplit, which is like, I don't know, like a couple tens of bucks a month, like you get really great production on Twitch, and the fact you can just push it out there is great. Like I know Awesome Games Done Quick or Summer Games Done Quick, they stream a lot of retro games through capture card or not. Like both OBS and XSplit are just really great pieces of software, and they do it like it's so easy for them for someone who go from zero amateur production experience to like putting something out there live.
Yeah.
So
I think
the
it's a
capture,
testament.
yeah, sorry, I was gonna say the capture card part is the hardest part. I would say if you want to stream a retro game legit, like capturing from a TV.
Yeah,
that's really hard.
I think it's a testament to just how mainstream streaming and the desire to publicly broadcast yourself has come. That it was in one of the first updates for the PlayStation 4 that they would turn off the HDMI, the HDCP.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah. So, are you guys streaming your panels this year?
We won't be streaming likely,
Hopefully.
but we're going to record all of them.
You can record them and restream them, and then re-release the recordings on YouTube for double the ad money.
What we've been doing, what we did last year was we recorded all of the podcasts, and we've been releasing them over the podcast feed.
Oh.
So earlier we mentioned Robin Mahara. He was the one of the world champions from the Nintendo World Championships back in the 1990, I think it was. We've also got recordings with Ryan Payton from Republic and Metal Gear Solid. We've got Chris Kohler, who does his Antiques. What is it? Antiques Retro Game Roadshow?
I think that was the panel.
Roadshow.
I think that's the panel I went to last year in PAX. Like my friend just dragged me to it, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so amazing!"
Yeah, he did the same thing at our show, but it was much more
It was
more
awesome.
intimate because it was a smaller room. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can imagine like a smaller group of people would be amazing. Yeah.
And we had one of my favorites was John Hancock. You want to talk about your collector's collector? He is the man. He has something 27 or 28 complete collections. There's 27 different unique video game systems. So you think of all your systems that you've had or seen when you were a kid growing up. You've got your Atari, Commodore, and television, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, Sega CD, Xbox, PS1, PS2, PS3, Xbox 360, PS4. That's maybe 20 systems. He's got 20 of them complete, plus 7 more you've probably never heard of, and he's still going.
Like 2 more he's just made up. Like he's 3D printed a new console and like print the cardboard for the games. He's like, I just have it and there's no way you can disprove this didn't exist.
Yeah, he learned how to program so he could make a game so he could collect it.
Yeah.
It didn't get past the beta testing of the system, but I got one in the box.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an amazing, he's a super awesome guy too. I mean, he is just the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He has a sort of hard and fast rule about not overpaying for games. So a lot of this collection that he has was traded or picked up at garage sales or secondhand stores.
Why is that? I've never heard that before. Not paying too much for your games.
Well, I mean, it grows out of just the frugality of having an expensive hobby. You know, a lot of people can't devote that much money to it. But he's always been really good at, just walking into the right store at the right time, or asking some farmer what's in his barn and finding a box NES games. He's just done that. And I don't know how, but once again, Portland.
I should know more.
That's such an interesting thing. I think
apparently.
in 5 to 10 years.
I mean, usually go around November. That's when the cartridges get really ripe. So.
I think honestly though, if you think about it, in five to 10 years, if not even in a couple years, you'll probably start seeing people seeking out this technology as it goes away. Like just like not like parents or relatives or people who picked up this and that and don't care about it anymore. It's going to be a huge upswing. It's just these generations who were several generations into video gaming now, and I didn't really think people were really nostalgia minded until about maybe a decade or so ago, at least in my experience. You had a couple friends in his school who would have an old console because it was, it was there and you get a whole bunch of games for cheap, nobody cared, and now all of a sudden it's a thing again, and it's fascinating. Enough to actually hold an expo about it in Seattle.
Yeah, and we're nowhere near the largest either. We're in our 4th year. The Portland Retro Gaming Expo, which is the direct descendant of the Northwest Classic Games Enthusiasts, is in their 9th year. No, their 10th year, excuse me. And they are probably 3 to 4 times larger than us. And they're not even the national one. The national one is the Classic Gaming Expo, which takes place in Las Vegas. I think it's in September this year. Is that right, Kinsey?
Yeah, like mid-September.
Yeah. So there's definitely, it connects with a lot of people.
So, excuse me, I got a little overclamped. I was excited. So speaking about this year, specifically, I was wondering about some of the events you coming up. You got a lot going on. I also noticed you don't have night events, and I wanted to talk about what you just have a hard cutoff at 6 because you mentioned you were a busy organization.
The 6 p.m. cutoff is actually mainly for the vendor hall. We don't want people to be too late, and we know our vendors have their own things that they have to prepare for the next day and take care of their inventory and stuff. So we close the vendor hall at 6, but the actual show floor is going to be open until 10 p.m. So that'll be our free play room, which is my collection plus a bunch of other people's collections. I think it's something like 1,500 games that are available that are free to play on 20, 30 different televisions. And then we also have the System Link room, which is going to have a 10-player Steel Battalion. If you don't know Steel Battalion, that's the game that has the giant controller. Yeah. So that was a rare game even when it was new, and we've got 10 of them all linked together so we can do kind of a team battle. Nice. Right next to that is going to be the System Link, which is 10 more Xboxes. Is it 10, Kinsey? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it's 10, and with like a gigantic System Link library.
Yeah, like hundreds of games. We found we have the other co-founder, Gerald. He just does a really good job of finding these games, and so we've got 10 copies of Gra and 10 copies of Rainbow Six and 10 copies of Halo 2 and all these games that are specifically designed to be played in a LAN format. So everybody has their own TV, their own system that they play with, all competing. And then next to that, we also have a GameCube System Link, which is new this year. We have 16-player Mario Kart Double Dash?
Yep, 16-player Mario Kart, and then some games are going to be 4-player, but everyone gets their own screen, like Kirby's Air Ride, which would be awesome to do that with. So
yeah, so this is one of the ways that we harness our power for good. We try to get together. Nobody in their, how many people in their lifetime have gotten 16 TVs together into one room so that they can all play Halo 2 on this giant LAN system? Only a handful of people have done that, and this is your opportunity to go there and play like Star Wars Battlefront and all these other games you've never even heard of in a way that you're probably not going to be able to play anywhere else. So that's what we have open until 10 p.m. So it's open all day. And then, of course, we got the panels that'll be going. We're also going to have a charity auction to help out with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. That's going to be a silent auction going on all day. And that will end just before the Arcade Armageddon tournament / chiptune concert starts. So we do have a lot going on at night.
I was wrong.
Sunday, not so much.
I was delightfully wrong.
Yeah, I guess we should probably do a better job of communicating the nighttime events. But yeah, we tried to have something for everybody. We tried to make it so that even at night when you're done buying your games and you're ready to have some fun, that you can stick around and do that.
That sounds like a really fun set of events. I was going to ask though, but you bring all those games and you're responsible for all those games. How can you let the family out into the world and not just sit there and worry for the course of 2 days? I'm not kidding in any way, shape, or form.
I've been doing conventions in this style for 9 years now. I started out. I was on the board of directors for SakuraCon. And I dialed it back because I had much more fun sitting in their retro room, which is just one small part of their convention, and letting people play my games and watching them enjoy the games and seeing people my age come in and say, "Oh, I haven't played this game in 20 years," and see people bring in their kids and show them the games that they played when they were little. And when people are in that mode, a lot of that goodwill comes out, and we've had almost no instances of theft or arguments or anything like that at our show or in the free play room. So I have no trust issues at all with letting people take these games to their station, play them for half an hour or however long they want, and 999 times out of 1,000 they'll bring it right back.
That's heartening to hear. I always think to myself, like, man, it's gotta be tough to just say, like, okay, well, here it goes.
Well, the
See you
reality
in 2 days.
the reality is that Mario 3 gets checked out 50 times, and Princess Tomato and the Solid Kingdom gets checked out maybe once. So people like knowing that they can go in and try out those weird, obscure games, but when it comes down to it, they want to play Balloon Fight or Marble Madness and just kind of look at Cheetah Man 2.
So I just had to ask Kinsey. I was looking through the events listings. What is Metal Jesus Rocks?
Well, Metal Jesus Rocks has a YouTube channel under the same name, and he's also an avid collector in our area. He's really into metal music, so hence the name. And I've been on his channel a couple of times, and he's amazing. He's like a YouTube sensation, loving video games and metal music. Definitely worth checking.
He's one of those guys
it
that
out.
has a really awesome game room too, Kinsey. I know you've recorded a couple of the Metal Jesus videos at his game room, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, I've played many a game in the game room as well, after a couple of good old Seattle craft beers.
I'd like to remind everybody that
That's
HOMAGO.com
definitely
is not endorsing the activities of our over 21 participants. However, we understand that there is freedom of choice. I'm
It'll definitely be a really fun panel.
Yeah, we like Metal Jesus. We like Video Game Break. Carlos Rodella. He has started a really great community-based website, and there's a bunch of other local websites and organizations that we try to partner with whenever we can.
Do you feel that it's best to? I noticed you keep bringing up local and community, which is a really cool concept, especially because what you talk about is not even a niche, but a collection of niches. So I'm wondering if you view things on like a local, statewide, or national or international scale, or if how much time you spend researching and keeping up with all these developments and other events, because there's so much going on. It just seems mind-boggling.
Well, it just sort of happens, really.
Yeah,
the more you talk about things going on in your area. Sorry, Kinsey. You actually, you should talk about this because you're the one who knows. You do a lot more than I do. Go for it.
Well, there's tons of like retro video gaming events in like the country. There's tons of them, and I'm kind of even out of the country. I'm finding out that Toronto, Canada, has an amazing retro gaming scene, and there's so many like game journalists and like awesome game people up there. And then there's of course CG, which we've already mentioned, Retropalooza in Texas. Like there's so much going on, and I always try to like something small like. I will always like Friday follow CGE, Portland, like all of them that I can. We're all in this together.
Yeah, and one of the things that retro games are really good at is getting 5 or 6 people in a room together and sitting them down in front of a TV and playing games together. So I think that you're missing out on the retro game thing if you're not sitting in the same room with some other people, some friends, and having some pizza or doing whatever and playing some games. And the best way to do that is locally, within your community. So and there's benefits to it too. If you meet people, you get to know them. My current girlfriend I met at the NWCGE show in 2004. So it behooves me to organize events where people can get together and hang out.
Pay it forward.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's weird.
I'm actually wondering. Oh, please, Kinsey. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I have my host shame. No, it's all me. A little bit of host shame on my part.
I think I've got some lag, but like it's weird. Like I joined Twitter like a year ago. Like I haven't been on Twitter for very long, and I've met so many people who are into retro video games. I've like been on some of their podcasts, and we're like good friends now. It's kind of awesome to like I don't know step outside your community as well and meet all these wonderful people who are like all throughout the world basically.
Mhm.
We're everywhere basically, you guys. It's like. Retro games will infiltrate every single country.
So you're saying there's just no escape?
Exactly.
much.
There's no escape. Want to buy an
There's no
Xbox
escape.
One?
There's
I'm
no-
sorry. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna get a
Resistance is
Super
futile.
Nintendo. Like
Yeah.
Uh, Next thing you know, you've got to deal with old sprites. Actually, we learned today. We were getting ready for this event that I mentioned earlier, this summer-long program. People are pushing. They're going to like sprite galleries, and they're taking down the video game character sprites and using like the kids' visual software programming languages and making their own games with Mega Man or Ryu from Ninja the Gaiden.
Aw.
I mean, it's
And
such like an adorable gray legal area, but it's. I mean, it speaks to like
Yeah.
how much these games mean to it means to them, right? So.
But there's
Yeah.
been a fantastic shift. There's been a fantastic shift in like the remix culture even today, as we saw, alongside with the decommissioning of the PSP, the Metal Gear remake that Konami's like, sure, go ahead, just don't make any money off it. And Nintendo's attitude towards fan remixing has shifted a lot over the years. It's just really exciting to see people kind of take it and make it their own, and be it old or new, or something that's in between the two.
Yeah, it was really nice to see Nintendo realize that shutting down fan sites because they were using Nintendo sprites was not the best move.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how their Mario Kart tournament turns out. You know, I like to see the NES remix on the Wii U. I'm glad that they get it finally, or at least they're starting to.
Well, I just noticed that. Tim, did you have a question?
No, I was agreeing with Nathan. Starting.
Yeah.
To get it, so.
I just thought you were surfing.
I mean, so what's interesting. So in the realm of kind of Nintendo getting it, what a game that's really sticking out to me that's interesting. I'm not sure if it would be retro in any capacity because it still has this crazy vibrant community. It's Super Smash Bros. Melee, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
at E3, they're having a huge tournament for Smash 4, but the competition is all with the GameCube game Melee. I mean, I guess that could be considered retro. It's not really sold in stores. It goes for quite a sum of money if you look at the right places. Like, it's kind of interesting, right? Like, it's still very within the modern game dialogue, but it's a very old game.
Well, Nintendo did something that I think is a really odd move, but I'm really excited to see, which is they released an adapter for the Wii U
Yeah,
that lets you
it's
use
like-
GameCube controllers.
I
Yeah.
saw
That's
that.
crazy.
Yeah.
It just
That's
makes
a
you wonder if
smart
the market
move.
for GameCube controllers is going to go through the roof.
Yeah, like
It already
that's-
starting to though. Have you tried to buy a GameCube controller lately? Like they've crazy
Yeah,
gone
no.
up in price.
especially
Can't say I have.
my friends who were really getting back into Smash Melee, like specifically Melee, right? Like that's where the stuff is happening. They went to look for GameCube controllers, and like exactly like you said, it's like hard to get the one you want,
Yeah.
like the exact specification. So it's like I don't know if another game will be like Melee, where it's like an old game, so people are hunting down the hardware from that era to play it competitively. But that's like exactly what's happened to Melee. It's like we want the GameCube controller. Like we don't want the Wii U Pro. We don't want we don't want no Kinects. We don't want your fancy move hoo-has. We want like a GameCube controller, and I don't know. It's what's even funnier is people who are just getting into Smash Melee. Like I don't know if you can buy it in the Wii store or whatever, but like they're people who didn't grow up with the GameCube controller still want the GameCube controller to play Smash Melee, right? Like even like people who played Xbox 360 still want the GameCube controller to play Melee. It's wild. So
Of
that's
all
really-
the game controllers,
yeah.
you would think would be the one that fighting game players want. the GameCube controller is probably right down there with the Atari joystick.
Yeah.
I never would have expected that to
Smash
be
is
like a coveted fighting game controller, but
yeah, I mean, Smash is like a whole different
it's
breed
crazy.
of fighting games, though. Like, it controls differently. It doesn't have like the regular, like, 6-button high kick, low kick, whatever.
Mhm.
Like, it's so different, and I think that's why it might have been a reason why it took off so much. That and the like Nintendo branding, but
Well, that and the feeling
whatever.
of playing a game and just kind of going to yourself, I don't know who I am or what's going on.
That's exactly how I feel. Yeah.
It's my Smash experience.
Is that me falling off the cliff? Oh, yes, it is.
Well, you think you're doing really well, then you realize no, you're the one that keeps getting killed over and over and over again, and you're also at the wrong side of the screen.
I must be doing really good. I'm at 100%.
No.
I mean, just pro tip: if any of you collectors have game controllers and you want like 3 months worth of Chipotle, I know some way that you could make that happen.
There's some really weird collectible things. Like just getting into the weirdness of collecting. One of the weirdest collectibles for the GameCube right now is the GameCube component cables.
Oh, I have
yeah. That would make sense.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
They're not just expensive because they're rare. They have some like circuitry in them that it was Nintendo did it to save money, and I don't think it was ever sold in stores. It was only sold online through Nintendo Store. So if you look for them on eBay right now, they go for about $150.
Yep.
Just for the cable, and it's just one of those weird things that I never knew it was worth money or rare until I thought, hey, I want to hook up my GameCube to my HDTV. Nope, I'm not going to do that today.
Never.
It's all about Smash.
I have them.
Oh, you have a cup? Or you have a pair?
Yeah.
Do you want some Chipotle? Because Tim knows somebody.
Yeah.
Well, if you've read my Twitter at all, you know that I really like burritos, like an unhealthy amount. So we might have something going here.
Yeah. Cubes for Chipotle. That's the foundation.
That's a you can start a different NPO.
Yeah.
Cubes for Chipotle.
Cubes for Chipotle.
With that said, guys, do we have any final questions? Because we're at about the 3-minute warning here, and I want to make sure everybody gets their plugs in.
I have a question for Tim.
Yeah.
So you grew up in the esports. Was there like would you say there was a gateway game, a retro game that got you into esports? Like what was the?
Yeah, I guess they would be retro-ish now, which would be Counter-Strike 1.4.
Yeah.
And then obviously to 1.6, and I was on the hate train with Steam. Now it's amazing. And then also StarCraft Brood War, which I guess speaking of another retro game played competitively, StarCraft Brood War was played like 12 years after its release, still going strong right now, like as an underground thing. And no one really plays 1.6 anymore competitively unless they're super hardcore. But like, yeah, those are interesting. But they're PC, like you said. Like PC is a weird medium because are they, if you can still get it online, like Blizzard still sells StarCraft Brood War on their digital store. I'm sure you can still buy Counter-Strike 1.6. That's fine. But
yeah.
They're not a cartridge. They're not an object that disappear over time.
Games online are weird. I mean, they're fluid things. They don't. They live. They breathe. They don't stay the same. If anybody has played Warcraft for more than 2 years, they know that what you end up with is way different than what you started with.
Yeah. Warcraft 2 even still has like a competitive community somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're gonna go find it, like take a sword and a shield, like you're gonna need it. But yeah, it's wild. Like things that exist on the computer are this different beast because if people want it to survive as like an online community, they will make it survive. You know what I mean? And,
yeah. The closed nature of consoles is really starting to bite us. I think people felt it first when Nintendo shut down the Wii U. Or, I'm sorry, not the Wii U, the Wii servers. For I think it was for everything but Smash.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I don't know about Smash, but yeah, like Monster Hunter 3, my roommate wanted to play that really bad, and then he bought it, and then nope.
Yeah, Animal Crossing died. Yeah, it's a shame. It's too bad.
Yep.
But that's okay. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else.
No, that's fine. That's a good question because that really got me thinking. Like, I mean, it's funny because I another person I know who does writing in the esports community, he did some investigation into competitive tournaments of Super Nintendo, Nintendo, and like other games in the past. So like the idea of esports has existed for so long, but what we identify as esports has been vastly different. You know, like it's weird because it's been on TV. Nintendo has done their own tournaments. Pokemon is still like competitive, but what is exactly what the LA Times covers or NPR covers or the Daily Dot covers as esports is not those things, which is really interesting to me actually. So it's also really funny to watch those introductions from like Nintendo arcade stuff. It's hilarious.
Oh yeah. You know, the other competitive side of competitive gaming that I can think of that I think is interesting is the arcade high score contests. You have people
And
anybody who's seen
pinball.
King of Kong.
Yeah.
Why isn't Billy Mitchell a guest, guys?
I just need to say this Flappy Bird.
Oh,
Well,
I meant 96.
so-
I got
179.
wow.
Billy Mitchell was going to be at the arcade
Billy
convention
Mitchell, though,
that I
yeah.
was going to, and he canceled his panel, and I was pissed. But then I was like, it's Billy Mitchell.
Yeah.
I saw that
Can't
movie.
be mad at you.
We had the other guy. Who's the other guy from the movie? I can't remember his name. He's local. He lives
Steve
in Redmond.
Wiebe?
Steve
Steve
Wiebe at the
Wiebe.
EMP event. Yeah, he played Donkey Kong
Yeah.
on the 80-foot screen.
It was adorable.
I feel like that's the topic for another time because I can go on about retro competitive. That's very interesting beasts.
There's a lot more to say. I think the only thing I have to say left about that is that Arcade Armageddon, I mentioned, was a chiptunes concert, but it's also a tournament. So if you like doing competitive old retro games, Arcade Armageddon is a good place to do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Get
and
my
well, for
ticket to
that,
Seattle right now.
yeah, you should, because for Arcade Armageddon, they do the prelims at our show.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to get a high score in the Nintendo Campus Challenge.
Oh.
And yeah, And so you have to get a high score in that, and then that will move you onto the championships, which is during the actual chiptune show, where they go like on stage tournament, chiptune show, on stage performance, chiptune show. And then the last thing is a mystery, just like the Wizard, which is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, everyone watched The Wizard, and they're like, I just want to be that. I just want to be that
Exactly.
guy. Exactly. That's
So
that's how I structure my life, is to become the Wizard.
You should probably book your
movies I
tickets
saw in the
now.
theater.
Yeah.
So with that said, I think I'd like to go ahead and close up. Thank you so very much to Nathan and Kinsey from SeattleRetro.org, and Tim, thanks for stopping by, as well as Ben, strong but silent. Again, this is Evan Jones from HOMAGO.com.
It's good to be here. Hey, Commando on Commodore 64 rules.
Yeah, it does. Woo.
Oh, it's that Ben. I was like, oh, it's Ben. And I'm like, oh, it's Ben.
Yeah, that's all. I've said my piece.
I think it was important. Everybody, there isn't enough Commodore 64 talk out there.
Yeah, it's great.
I agree.
Tape decks.
And if you want to live in the future and the past at the same time, and get the best of both worlds, please stop by SeattleRetro.org. They're throwing the Seattle Retro Gaming Expo on June 28th and 29th. Please check it out, and you can find them on Twitter at Seattle Retro. From everybody at HOMAGO.com, thanks again, everybody, for joining us, and thanks to all of you for stopping by. I'm going to stop the broadcast here. Good night, good luck, tell your friends, and go play some retro video games in Seattle.